on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
It's Friday, and Kevin Doran fans will be glad to know that Kevin will be back next week, Tuesday, we believe. I'm Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran once again, on with our regular Friday guest, Dr. Robert Heinemann from Alfred University. Dr. Bob, as they call him. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Brian, and we hope to go head-to-head with, what was the guy's name? Kevin Doran. Later.
Oh, yes, I remember him.
Yes, well, he drifts off, you know.
Bad winter storms again in New York State. Dr. Heinemann, Governor Andrew Cuomo shows great leadership in those emergency situations. A couple of weeks in a row of that. Does this help Cuomo's future run for the White House?
I suppose, ability to get things done. But I think you have to understand, generally speaking, in New York, you can criticize the unions, and we often do. But in terms of a workforce, New York has a really pretty capable workforce. And you may recall that Bloomberg, in a number of situations in New York City, was very, very good at getting things taken care of and covered. So I think, it's important that the man is able to make decisions and get things moving. That's for sure.
Right. Bad week for New Jersey Governor Christie. It's been all over the news. Christie, one of his top aides, is accused of messing up traffic intentionally on the George Washington Bridge, causing traffic jams and confusions on the roads there. The New York Times reports that this was discovered in emails between a Christie staffer and I guess a Christie friend. And Governor Christie denies knowledge of these emails and blames his staff completely. Dr. Heinemann, is that it for Chris Christie? Is he all done, or can he be saved?
Well, I think the rest of the country probably doesn't understand what's involved there. So in that sense, I think he's probably all right. But there's no question that this is not a good thing for Mr. Christie. I think what we're seeing here, and I don't think there's any question about it, is that the Clintons are working very hard at this point to undermine Christie's credibility. And I'm not saying that the New York Times is in the back pocket of the Clintons, because they've published some stories that are fairly critical of Hillary as well. But certainly in terms of contacts and feeding information to the New York Times, I'm sure the Clintons are very good at that. But you not only have the Clintons concerned about Christie, but of course you have some of the real conservative right-wingers in the GOP concerned about him too. So he's got a lot of people out there taking shots at him, and there are bound to be these sorts of glitches show up. It's not a good thing for him, and we'll just have to see how he plays it.
I was saying, like the host of this show meeting Kevin Doran.
What did Kevin Doran do?
Well, he's very anti-Chris Christie.
Oh, yes, right. And we try to balance that sort of off-base opinion there that the former host has. I guess you would be the interim host, right? And he would be me. The former host, yes.
What about the book that came out about the Obama administration by former Defense Secretary Bob Gates? That was all over the national news this week, too. Those who have read the book says this book does not put Vice President Joe Biden in the best light. Your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Well, I'm a tremendous fan of Bob Gates. I don't think there's any question that he's one of the finest public servants we've had. And I think, in fact, there's a quote somewhere I saw where somebody said, thank God Bob Gates is in charge of this right now, not some of these other possibilities. I don't remember what the emergency was at the time. Now, we had, as you may recall, one of our alums from Alfred was Director of Training and Development, Training and Recruitment for the CIA, He's since passed away, unfortunately, but he worked under Bob Gates, and he was very, very laudatory of Gates. He said Gates was one of the finest directors of the CIA he'd seen. So the guy's judgment, I think, is something to be listened to. And frankly, what he said, I think, basically confirms pretty much our whole impression of the Obama administration to begin with, that Obama, frankly, doesn't pay much attention to what's going on, and Joe Biden isn't the brightest bulb in the chandelier. So, and there's no reason for Gates, frankly, to be partisan about this. He was appointed by Bush originally, but then appointed by Obama. So it's not he's got any particular axes to grind. I think whatever Bob Gates said, I'd pay some attention to. Yeah.
The vice president paid a trip to Albany this past week. Under the circumstances, with that book out by Gates, would that have any effect on the trip to see Cuomo?
No, I don't think so. No, after all, Biden is a graduate just barely of Syracuse Law School, so he does have connections in New York State. It is kind of interesting, though. I think you do see signs here and there that Joe Biden has some aspirations to run for the presidency, and that would be a lot of fun to watch that. Yeah.
What about a Cuomo-Hillary ticket?
Cuomo Hillary with Hillary as the VP, or you want a Hillary Cuomo with Cuomo as
some kind of combination like there would seem like it would make sense for the Democrats.
Well, I think Cuomo definitely is trying to position himself to be a candidate for the presidency. If I were Cuomo, I certainly would not take second spot, and obviously Hillary isn't going to want to take second spot in that kind of situation. But if I were Cuomo, I would certainly. So you're liable to see some friction here in the Democratic camp on that. But of course, Clinton, being a former senator from New York State, can claim that she has roots here as well. But to be governor of a state like New York, with all that entails, and then end up being vice president, I don't think it's hardly a step up, frankly, especially in the Clinton administration. That would be a pretty unpleasant position.
The New York Post just had an editorial that says Hillary is not inevitable. The article says Democrats don't like political veterans or the obvious choice, and that the voters in the general election don't like those things either. Your take on that editorial?
Well, I haven't seen the editorial, but I certainly agree with your summary of it in terms of what it says. I think Hillary, frankly, is getting stale, and I think people have seen enough of the Clintons. I think the advantage that Hillary would have would be basically that there's nobody else out there that they could whom they could turn to. But the Democrats do have a number of candidates out there, I think, that are legitimate contenders for the White House, and so she's not alone there. Now, that's not to say that these guys, like Cuomo, for example, are stepping forward at this point. I mean, they're just sort of sitting back. She's spending a lot of time addressing women's groups and in closed sessions, raising money, putting together an organization. I mean, she's running right now for the presidency and trying to put together an organization, I think trying to mimic what Obama and Axelrod did for Obama's election. But the point is, black folk, and you look at the statistics, 94% of black people in the country voted for Obama, and you can understand that. But you're not going to get that kind of breakdown with women. And the basic issue there, as Mr. Doran would point out, is abortion. Women are seriously divided on the issue of abortion, and Hillary Clinton is clearly a free pro-choice candidate. And so these liberal groups can raise money for her, they can get out and work for her, but in terms of putting together the kind of base that Obama was able to put together, I don't think she can do that. And I think you're right. I think there are a lot of veteran Democrats there that would not want to see Clinton's back in the White House. You know.
Dr. Robert Heinemann, Alfred University professor of political science, is the regular weekly guest with us on a Friday. Dr. Heinemann, Rush Limbaugh had words of criticism for what he calls the Republican establishment on the topic of immigration reform. Limbaugh says the GOP will cave to big business interests on immigration and do what the Democrats ultimately want, which is make way for what Limbaugh calls illegal aliens. He also calls them undocumented Democrats. He says that way the Republicans will cave to the Democrats, and this will help the Democrats because the illegal immigrants will be Dem voters ultimately.
The Republican leadership knows that their base doesn't want amnesty. So they're working on some things to get this done that would provide the workers but would not necessarily be amnesty. One of the things that is being talked about at the leadership level in the House is granting legal status to everybody that's here illegally without citizenship. We're not going to make them citizens, but we're going to give them essentially green cards. We are going to legalize them for work.
First of all, I think the conservative movement generally should distance itself from business interests. This idea that conservatives are all big business, I think we've got to move away from that and give ourselves more flexibility just as conservative thinkers. But as elected representatives, business is entitled to be represented just like farmers or unions or environmentalists are. And if immigration and more flexible immigration is important to business, I think they should have a say. As you know, at the H.L. Mencken Club, was it 2 years ago, I gave a talk on this and was not warmly received by these, put it mildly, anti-immigration conservatives. Right. But my point has always been that immigration has been key to the strength of America. And when you have people who are eager to come to this country and work, I think we should do everything we can to help them. I think Boehner is moving in this direction too. So Limbaugh's tirades, frankly, I think are misplaced. Now, there is another issue I think that needs to be watched, and that is the so-called Volcker Rule, which has pretty much been passed and put into place by now. Paul Volcker, former chairman of the Federal Reserve, has proposed a rule that banks cannot use basically their customers' money for investments in hedge funds and other stock market investments. They can use the money they have as a bank corporation, but they can't be invest in all these other kinds of investment possibilities. And that's one of the situations that led to the big bubble. Banks use money from other accounts, and they went down the tank, and the banks then found themselves on the very edge. And a lot of banks have folded, of course. So this is a very good rule by Volcker. But now I see that one of the chairmen in the House of Representatives is moving to open up the Volcker Rule, and that's the sort of thing I'd hope Republicans would stay away from. I think there's a very strong liberal pro marijuana pothead group out there, and this kind of gives Cuomo a sort of a nod toward these areas of the state. And, of course, the marijuana laws in New York State fairly restrictive, and, of course, in terms of people in prison and such, it's pretty costly to the state. So I think this is kind of a nod in that direction. obviously what Cuomo's doing is pretty limited at this point. And so the man dances on all these really heavy issues, fracking, Common Core, the marijuana, trying to satisfy everybody. And that's why, Brian, we need a candidate for governor who will stand up and force him to take positions.
And that is?
Well, that would be Donald Trump, of course, yes.
Anything new on that?
Well, my understanding is today they're meeting with Mr. Trump again and trying to see what his thoughts are. I see Mr. Astorino, who I think, again, is a very fine man from Westchester County, said basically he's 50-50 on whether to run. And if he does, that is not going to turn out well for the Republicans. I think one of the problems Mr. Astorino has is that he's just been reelected to the county executive of Westchester County. So within, 3 weeks of taking office, he's going to announce he's going to run for governor. I mean, I don't think that plays particularly well. I think he'd better take care of Westchester County, which I think he's doing a fine job with. So the Republicans got to find somebody who can go out there and force the governor to take positions. And that's where someone like Donald Trump would be, I think, pretty effective. Whether he wins or not, who knows?
Seen a lot of articles where State Republican Chairman Ed Cox is talking about Rob Astorino but doesn't talk about Trump?
I may be. I know he's calling the county chairs around the area and spent a lot of time with some of the other people in the area on the phone trying to build support for Astorino. I think the county chairs I know at this point are all basically staying neutral. So I think if Trump were to decide to run and jump in with both feet, Mr. Astorino would say, go get him, Donald, because to take on his money and name recognition would be a pretty tough thing to do. And so let's see how it plays out. I don't know. Obviously, Mr. Trump is interested in the troubles that Mr. Christie is having right now. It seems to me might encourage him even further to get involved.
In terms of ultimately running for the
down the line, and the theory being Republicans need somebody from the Northeast to speak for them.
Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, he was pretty quiet about Common Core, came out this week against it, saying it needs to be delayed because there's too many problems. Your take on that?
Well, I guess they've finally gotten through to the Assembly, and he may well feel that he may lose a few seats in the Assembly because of this, which I think he might, because the teachers' unions are, to put it mildly, a pretty effective political force. Now, Silver outnumbers the Republicans 2-1 in the Assembly, but it's kind of interesting. If he can pick up another Assembly seat, he's going to try to do it. I mean, it looks like he wants all 150 seats there. But I could see he may feel he could lose 8 or 10 seats, and obviously the pressure is getting through to him.
We've been talking with Alfred University Professor of Political Science, Dr. Robert Heinemann. Dr. Heinemann, any final thoughts before we go?
Well, I think one of these days we'll have to talk about international affairs these days. There have been a number of situations where things are getting very, very grim, I think, in the Middle East. But if you follow Bob Gates's take on the presidency, President Obama enjoyed his vacation in Hawaii, and probably, we'll see if there's any change there, which I don't think there will be. But it looks very, very dark over there in that area.
All righty, Dr. Robert Heinemann, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian.